Welcome to Smart Haus, a Pittsburgh podcast about smart technologies, artificial intelligence, virtual reality, and the future. I'm your host, Dustin Dowling, and with me today is Jason Clark. But let's do a headline first. Insteon is out, no longer in. The smart home company suddenly shut down everything. As of Friday, Insteon users have said they have lost power to their smart home hubs. Insteon supposedly went out of business, shut down their servers, and are no longer responding to users. One Reddit user Sunday said, "Fortunately, the devices themselves continue to work. We can turn our lights on and off by setting and pressing switches directly." That's savage. That's old school right there. So the sub has stopped functioning, but the devices that go with the hub still have some kind of functionality. The company's support forums are also down, and their social media pages have been completely unresponsive. All right, now, so their Twitter hasn't been active since mid-2021, and most of the company's executives no longer list Insteon on their LinkedIn profiles. Many of its devices were compatible with Apple's home system kit. But here's the thing. The production of the Insteon hub ended 5 years ago, and practical support from the company for the hub ended 3 years ago. Jason Clark, thank you for coming. Do you have any thoughts on this?
Yeah. So first of all, I'm not a tech guru. That's not what it's not where the world I live in. And when you sent me, you sent me that that opening headline, and I honestly was like, is this him doing a creative writing exercise to position us for a dystopian world? I was like, is this a real company? There were words in that headline that I was like, I don't have time to Google what the heck Dustin is sending me. Is this real?
This
is
like
real.
Podcast. It's real. It is totally real. And I think what's crazy is it's like, so I have everything hooked up with Google at home.
Okay.
That's the one I chose. Some people have Alexa, whatever their device is. And I've had issues where like I had to change the Wi-Fi, and it was a day of work of like reconnecting all my devices. Because when I get up in the morning, I say, "Hey Google, good morning," and it turns on my television, it turns on my lights, it set my thermostat.
I want to. I love you.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
It's amazing.
I love automation. I love that idea. I think we all grew up, seeing different things that were showing you the future, where you would talk to, your house, and you could tell your house to do different things, and now it's a reality. I think even as a kid, where like, I think it was like the Jetsons, like when you think like what time frame the Jetsons took place is actually like, I don't know exactly, but it's like relatively soon, or possibly
it's like now.
Like now.
Yeah, it's around now.
And all we talked about was like, we're gonna have flying cars, and that's all we focused on. We didn't focus on the robot that cooked dinner. That we didn't focus on that Rosie did everything. Like, I don't need a flying car. I just want to say something, and something makes my food.
Like, what was George's job? What was his whole job?
He worked for Stanley's.
But what did he actually do?
Oh, wow. I don't know.
He pressed one button.
That's all he did?
That's all he did.
Okay.
And all he did was have to press a button.
That's a beautiful world.
It's a beautiful world, but isn't it? Like you said, it's like a dystopian world in some fashion. Like, this is what the show I really try to get into. But it would be crazy for, like I said, if everything just turned off. But at the same time, I thought it was weird that like no one realized, like, hey, they're not making the stuff anymore. Maybe you should change your company.
Because you're going to see, I mean, businesses are not going to be able to sustain.
Yeah.
And the thought of this company, you are beholden to this one company for a lot of functionality within your home or your business, and they go away. Like, it's
so scary. What if like the company decides it doesn't like what you've been posting or saying in the house, and they're just going to shut you off?
Yeah. That comes into probably the thing is I remember like when just as simple as smart light bulbs coming out, right? And talking to my wife and being like, what do you think about like automation and these things and she was born. Neither of us are conspiracy theorists, we're like, people are like, Alexa's listening to everything you say. I'm like, what the hell are they hearing me say? Like, I'm not like, if I'm doing, like, if the government wants something, like, I'm not doing whatever, I don't know, but I get the whole idea of privacy. And
what I get scared about the automation thing is, like, for example, I have a dentist appointment every 6 months into my calendar, and say I put that into some kind of AI. Well, now it's setting it up for me, and then it's, hey, Dustin, you need to go to this dentist appointment. Oh, yeah. And then, like, further in the future, there's a car, it just shows up and is taking me, And then further in the future,
Yes.
like, am I even making the choice to go to the dentist? Is it even the dentist now in the future? What is it?
Wow.
Do you know, so
yeah.
you just keep going further and further on. But I mean, I just can't imagine like having everything set up though, and a company going, "You're off." Well, so this is one weird thing too. So sometimes it doesn't work, and I get upset, and I'll yell at Google, and I've swore at it before.
You sure?
Yeah, and the one time it was like, "Please don't call me that."
Oh, wonderful.
I was like, "What?"
Yes, I agree. I found myself being incredibly rude to Alexa because I don't like the song they chose, you know, and I'm just like shout out who I want to listen to at the time, and I'm like, nah, like with anger. And
Incorrect.
I'm like, my goodness, man. I'm like, I just wanted to hear Private Eyes by Hall & Oates. I didn't want to hear their B-sides.
Yeah, that's so funny. But like it talking back to me was pretty scary.
Yeah.
So what else you got going on, Jason? I forgot your name for a second. Who's on my show? Sometimes I want to say Ryan Clark, and it's like a thing in the back of my head. It's like, don't say Ryan Clark, don't say Ryan Clark. Defensive back.
I know
Steelers.
Exactly. Yeah. It's
So.
Weirdly, my daughter married a Tampa Bay Buccaneers fan. So if we want to talk sports, which for a second.
Yeah, we
But
can.
she moved to Tampa and she met her husband there, and he's been a lifelong Tampa Bay fan, and that's beautiful. Like I'm like, yeah, it's amazing. And they're in the NFC, and I'm like.
Yeah, whatever.
I back in the 80s when it was really lean here in Pittsburgh when it came to sports, you know, we just came off of the World Series. We just came off of winning four Super Bowls, right? 1980, and we get into that, and then it just drops off, right? Everything, the golden era is gone. And my dad was like, "All right, listen, you can pick an alternate team to root for, but they got to be in the NFC. They cannot be in the AFC. And if they happen to go to the Super Bowl the same time as the Steelers, you got to know where you come from." So we had to pick an NFC team. So it was very easy to be like, oh, yeah, it's an NFC, but more of a joke because I don't really I don't care about that stuff anymore.
So you just got to pick something
But
pick something.
You know what I mean? Because I get kind of turned off of the idea. People are just like, oh, you don't love the Steelers. Like, it's like, dude, shut up. Like, it's okay. We're okay. We can all be in our thing. But then Tom Brady goes, and that created a whole thing, right? That created a whole thing. But yeah, the idea like that. So Alexis, when she met, when they were talking sports, and she's like, he asked her who her favorite Steeler was, and she said Ryan Clark of all the Steelers, and that's what his reaction was, very much like, wait a minute, like. You've witnessed
how much you follow.
You've witnessed Super Bowls,
yeah,
like,
yeah.
and you've won. You've as a fan, you've experienced that. He had not, and maybe back when Derek Brooks and they won it with Gruden, back in the day. But but that was her, really her first recollection of being like, her remembering like she wanted that jersey because it said Clark on the back. Like, and she did like him as a player, and she would see interviews with him, and I think I don't know if she tweeted at him at one point, and
he probably tweets back,
and he did. He tweeted back. She was like, that was my first jersey, and that to her, it was not about necessarily you're one of the greatest Steelers of all time, which he's not, of all the people he can pick from, but he was somebody that she connected to. And it connected her to sports. It was on her terms of why. So it was kind of interesting from that perspective.
Yeah, but fuck Tom Brady, right?
Yeah, I mean that's an interesting conversation itself, because as a football fan my whole life, I'm sort of like, listen, us, we're on a tech podcast talking sports, and it's like, but no, for me it's just always been just like, I can respect the game. It's just like, I'm not whatever.
Well, I gotta have another episode, because I wanted, not this episode, to talk about the new football, because they have a lot of new tech in the what is that even that league called now?
Yeah, USFL was one, and then the XFL's coming as well. And they're going to push things, and it's exciting. I think that you've seen tech being introduced in the original version of the XFL when Vince McMahon launched that, and then they had
that was a weird version.
That was a very weird version, and I think that you're going to see them really amping those things up. I know, like the other night I was watching, and they were just like straight up using drones.
Oh yeah, that's
and that
crazy.
was amazing to watch.
When I saw that, I was like, okay, what happens if you bump into the drone? There are rules for this? I
mean, to me, it's no different. Like, as long as
a referee bumping into
a ref, you've got the idea of the sky cam that they've always had, that I've always looked at. I'm like, how is a punt never hit that? Like, you know what I mean? So I think as long as they're doing
cool.
it is. I'm all
it's cool.
for
And
it.
the first downs, you don't have to use a chain. Everything's all with the sensors. It sounds awesome.
Yeah.
So you were talking about a little bit about family, and I'll give you a chance, because when I asked you to come on this show, you had a picture of this young child, and I was like, is he a dad again? I'm like questioning how old Jason Clark is here.
Right, yeah.
And it was your grandchild, so congratulations.
Thank you. Yeah, Dudley's just over a month old, and it's pretty cool. You know, I get generally, I mean, I've gotten that same reaction from everybody of like when we started telling people that we're going to be grandparents, and my wife and I both would get the same the same response. You know, they're just like, you're too young. And I'm like, well, what's too young? I mean, we were young when we started our family together. You know, I was 23.
Yeah, I was 25 when I had my kid. She's 12 now, so it doesn't sound right.
Yeah,
but I think it's just now that you're experiencing it, unlike your parents, and with social media, it was just like, wait a second. And then also, I feel like with COVID and everything, like 5 years have gone past so quick. Like, when's the last time me and you actually had a conversation?
It's been years.
Years.
I mean, obviously, and there's a lot of things where people are like, it's been years. Yeah, it's been years since we've seen anybody. Like, if you listen, if you did it right.
Yeah.
Like, that's what I say that to people all the time. I'm like, you know,
you can tell real quick who like was in quarantine and who was like, what you mean about this quarantine? I was down at Stanley's all day, every day.
Yeah, it definitely. I mean, it was one of those things where you meet folks and you're just like, oh, you're still living a social existence. I mean, I'm sitting over here like, but so having, you know, they got married during the pandemic. They got married in October of 2020, and a lot of quick moving for them. My daughter's a traveling nurse and in emergency rooms, and when COVID started, the pandemic started, she was based out of Tampa. That's where she was out of, and she got out of there and wanted to get north and help out up here. She felt that Florida was not going to be very advantageous for any part of being in the healthcare profession. So she was very forward thinking about what was going to happen in that state. And then, one thing led to another, you know, and, you know, they were like, it's time. They bought a house in Connecticut, and her husband started a job with ESPN. It was all like coming together, and my wife came in one day and she goes, hey, I just want to let you know that the Lexus is, you know, they're not trying to have a kid, but they're not trying. Do you understand?
It's pretty much like, and she'll be pregnant in about a couple weeks.
And it was not long, and I didn't know how it was going to come. You know, I didn't know how I was going to react. I didn't know how I was going to be able to adjust, and you know, and it just sort of did not build up any real. I generally, as a person, do not build up try not to build up a lot of anticipation towards certain things and events. Again, it's because I'm protecting myself from disappointment, and not that I would ever be disappointed in this environment, but I think that all we can look at is like sort of like what were our influences, like who do we have to influence us for those stages of life. And I did not have grandparents. You know, I did not have active grandparents in my life. So, and my parents were not active grandparents with my children. So,
it's like, what do you want to be? Is like a question you're asking yourself.
Right? You know, how is this going to be, and how will I be able to be what I feel I need to be, not only for my grandson but also for my daughter. You know, I want them to raise their children. I don't want to raise their children. I want to be able to guide them if they need me. But I also know it's just one of those things where it's like, I won't know till I know.
Yeah,
you know?
and that's interesting, because in this future of how like society is built on each other, it seems like maybe a lot of grandparents did kind of raise kids in the last. Like, I talked to a lot of friends. They're like, well, yeah, my parents were working and my grandparents raised me.
Yeah.
And even now, I see people arguing on social media where, like, it's like, well, grandparents are yelling at the parents and saying, well, I did my time, I don't need to help you. It's like the opposite. And see this is maybe some of the, well, I should be pointing fingers, but like where I live up north, that's a little different, you know, the dynamics. And but yeah, it's just different. I think, you know, how people with how it is now, and like who raised who, and you know, it's separate, you know, with money and
my in-laws.
If
it was not for my in-laws. I mean, when my wife and I were first starting out, I mean, we were both, you know, figuring out our careers at that young of age and trying to figure everything out. And you know, my father-in-law, I mean, he's the basis for anything that I could have for what a grandparent should be like, and knowing that I probably on certain levels can never measure up to what Pap did and what he was to my children. And it's just me really looking at it and going, I want to be everything that I can be that he was for them, that I can be, because I just can't. Like, there's certain things that he just brought that were just so special. So that, you know, but as soon as I seen the baby, and as soon as I got in that environment and just put him in my arms, and it was just like, all right. And then I'll tell you, my diaper changing skills are still strong. I can still quiet a baby. Like, is it
like riding a bike?
It is truly. I was like, oh my goodness, because when I was there, they live in Connecticut, so I went up. My wife had already been there. She's still there. She's coming home this weekend. It was. Yeah, it was very much like coming in, and I would just say, I'm going to take the 10 at night to 2 a.m. shift. So leave him with me, and everyone go to bed. Get your rest. You guys need your rest. And then he would wake up, and I would clean him. I would change him, feed him, put him back to bed right there with me. And then he'd wake up a couple hours later to be fed again, and I'd feed him again, change him, and then put him in his crib, and then I'd punch out for the night so that everyone could try to get some sleep.
That was my flex when I had my daughter. I felt like I was so good at that, and I could put a diaper on so fast.
Yeah.
You know, it's just, I like better than my girlfriend at the time, and she'd get a little mad. I'm like, yeah, I know what I'm doing.
Yeah, yeah.
Anyways, I know we talking a lot about grandkids and diapers. What a tech show
What
this
show is this, man?
But
the tech in that is
yeah.
amazing.
Oh,
like,
I'm
let
sure.
me talk about that for a second. Like, I love, like, I've been waking up at, like, I'm a late person, so I stay up very late, and then but then I've been waking up a few hours into my sleep, and every morning at like 4 in the morning I'll wake up and I'll pull up his crib cam.
The monitor. You have the camera.
It is amazing. It's so, to me, is just, I can just sit there and I just look at him. You know what I mean? I'm like, that's what I'm talking about. That's how I make
that's some of the best TikToks, I mean, especially when you see like twins and stuff, the way they interact like in the middle of the night, and they're doing weird things. They're like
helping each other climb
out
out of
helping
the
each other
crib.
climb up, seances, you know, whatever, calling in different ghosts, talking to invisible people.
That's great.
But you do other things besides take care of young children. You work at Arcade.
From a few hundred miles away.
I should say you work at Arcade ComedyTheater. That doesn't sound right. It seems like you're an employee. You're more than that at the Arcade ComedyTheater.
Yeah, I mean, it's I'm kind of always been the all-in, like, I'm all in. And this one, when I got involved with the Arcade, I mean, we're coming up on our 10th anniversary.
Wow.
Which is kind of, you know, again, we have a quantum leap.
Yeah, I know.
There's a quantum leap that happened.
It messes with my brain every time.
That we have 2 years, even though we were very active during the pandemic, just not indoors or in person. So, it's given so much to me. Like, when I got involved as a volunteer, you know, just within the first 2 years of it opening. And I was just you know, my kids at that point had got to the age where they didn't want mom and dad around. They were self-sustaining, you know, and it was just, you know, hey, we can go and let's go see what's going on. And I happened to read about the Arcade. I was reading in the paper about the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles live read.
That's when they start doing live reads.
You know, and that's, you know, and I knew as a person that was following Pittsburgh Dad, that Pittsburgh Dad was in Chris Brexta, and those guys, those folks were doing things with them. And I was like, this looks like we both love comedy. Let's go see comedy. So we started going to the original location. We became known as the couple that sat stage right by the restrooms, and that we sat in the same seats every time. And sometimes we were the only, like, one of like 5 people in the audience in those early days.
Like, it was super small audiences.
It was just do it and, like, be consistent, and I love the model, and I love being around the energy, and I felt at that room, and I loved comedy, and I loved everything about it, and it just gave me this sort of like you know, you talk about people finding purpose, and that's sort of what it became for me. It was, you know, and it just continued to morph. I brought a skill set from what I have done in my career from an operations perspective that the folks that founded it did not necessarily have. And that just lent itself to what was soon to come, which was us moving from, a one floor small space to a building with 3 floors and 2 stages, a lounge.
I know, it's so crazy now.
So it just lent itself. The timing was everything, and so yeah, officially, I became the general manager of the theater, and people ask all the time. They're like, "Well, so what is it that you do?" And I'm like, "I generally manage everything. Like I'm generally
I'm the general manager.
Yeah.
So I'm generally managing.
Yeah, especially in the world we're in the theater world, we're in the arts community. So that's probably the biggest thing that we've seen, that we've been able to establish over the course of the pandemic in the last couple of years. We've always talked about like what our mission is. Our mission is to elevate in the art of comedy, and the first thing is making sure that other artists understand that this is an art. Like, we have not done ourselves justice as comedians of not paying enough respect to the fact of what we do is incredibly difficult, challenging, and is incredibly impactful in society as well, and it can be used as an amazing tool. So we haven't given ourselves enough credit over the how many decades of all these years of what
stand-up and improv is such a different art form, and I understand, like, if you paint something or make even music, you can kind of like hand it to them, and someone feels like they have something. But when you say I'm a comic or an improv, people are like, well, how do I? Oh, then just say something funny. And it's like, well, that's not my art. Like, it's not.
We get that, you get that a lot as a comedian, obviously, once people start finding out. A lot of times, I always find it interesting that a lot of us hide that we're in comedy.
Yeah.
To like our coworkers and things. And I respect that a lot, especially in a work environment, because then it becomes a whole thing. And it is what's interesting is because people look at comedians and they're just like, how do you even do that? Like, I do not want to talk in front of 2 people in a meeting, or let alone get into a room full of how many people,
and even talk a certain way, because the way you talk at work is different than the way you talk. Like, for example, when I first started trying to do this podcast, I was very like, this is a tech show, I don't want to be like witty and entertaining, but after about 20 minutes, I'm Dustin, and I'm just like, hey, yeah, fuck all, yeah, I can't hold it, I can't keep it in for a whole hour. I'm sorry, I can't.
I think humor lends itself to so many different, things. I'd much rather watch something that is maybe gonna, get a little chuckle out of me, or, get me to feel a little bit good about a certain thing. So I think introducing humor to anything in your life is gonna help, and it's is being a part of an arts organization like ours. It's more than just focusing on putting, comics or, people on stage. Like, it's different than saying that you're part of an organization, like you're running a comedy club. That, you got a comedian that's booked and they're going to run 5
Right,
days
it's not the improv.
So, no.
Even though it's like funny how that's called the improv, it really is the stand-up comedy club. But you're right, I see what you mean. You're not like focusing on trying to do it that way.
There's so much more to it. We have a mission that we are trying to uphold, and we're teaching classes, and we're having workshops, and we're trying to figure out that balance. And I've talked a lot about being an incubator for talent. That in Pittsburgh, we need to be able to be an incubator and be part of the process.
Oh, you need that. Because I've took classes at Arcade. I think I took some kind of creative writing classes sometimes, a long time ago.
Sketch writing and different things like that.
That's great. Do you have any type of tech in the building? Is there any cleaning robots or anything, or no Alexas, even just to?
Yeah, I've got Alexa. I have Alexa in my office, but one of the biggest cruxes in our building that drives me and the staff crazy, my house managers and stage managers, is what we use to play music for our audience that are out in the lobby, in the lounge.
Okay.
And so we've since the day we opened, we had a Sonos system installed.
Oh, all right.
And Sonos has just been such a challenge for us. And it's one of those things where when I get a Slack message, it's just like, Sonos isn't working. And I'm like,
Sonos a bitch.
I'm like, I'm about to just put Alexas in the lobby.
I've been on that
lounge.
tech line. It's usually some type of Bluetooth is always an issue with everything. That technology, I don't know, is not scaled up to what it should be. I'm thinking Bluetooth should be out working multiple devices, multiple times.
Yeah.
It's still crap.
Yeah.
It's still crap. Well, anyways, when you were I was bringing up robots, I wanted to switch to some more tech stuff and show you this robot that is from MIT, and it's called a mini cheetah. And what's crazy about it, it learned to walk entirely by trial and error in simulations. So we'll give this way too fast.
Oh, come on. Imagine that coming. Imagine that just walking like. Oh my gosh.
What's weird about it, it taught itself how to walk.
That is amazing.
So what else is it going to teach itself what to do?
So what did it? I want to see the video of when it. Like, was that a video of like when it first did it?
No, I'm assuming.
I want to see like the whole idea of like from, you know, again equating it to having a grandson right now, like the excitement of that Dudley rolled over, and then the next thing you know is Dudley's up on his knees.
Well, that's the
like,
thing.
Was that the same journey for this
No,
robot?
because human design controlled learned controller. Oh, look, so it has like if you use the controller with it and you try to drive it, and that's it learned itself. So it said it learned itself through simulation. So unlike the robots at Boston Dynamics where they have just keep fixing it, this thing has already done it. It taught itself in a computer simulation, and then it went out. So I don't think it's literally teaching itself now. It already taught itself, like the Matrix. It basically plugged itself in. The creepy part is how fast it is.
To think like all the way back to like the first remote control car I had a wire attached to it.
I know, yeah, and I mean that did have a wire too.
No, I know,
too, but, like,
I'm just saying like
to.
now we've got this, and that sort of goes with the whole like the Rosie the robot talk, you know.
Yeah. I mean, I have a couple drones, and they are so much fun. It's from the first times I remember getting like scared or like that anxiety, but like when you're 16, you first get behind a car, maybe a little younger, and the first time you drive, I feel that way every time I fly a drone. Because you just have this piece of metal just going 40 miles an hour in the air, and there's not like a road. I can go any direction, and I've had accidents where I've almost injured people.
Yeah, I can imagine. Like how high up have you taken your drone?
I think 1,000 feet, but
Dude,
yeah, but
like,
now you can't do it. You can't do it
it
now because they changed the settings. Maybe in some of the more advanced drones, but the one I have now, you can no longer go. Yeah, I think I can go to 700.
Like, are there commercial, like those drones, like we're talking about the XFL, like them at USFL and using drones and things. Like they're using, like those are like a commercial.
So, for example, the company DJI has a whole set of like, toy drones and then cinematic drones, and they have like enterprise drones and they have film drones. And these film drones can carry like 20 pounds. Like some ridiculous stuff. And then there's the mini ones where they can flip up and do, like, you're basically running them from like a VR helmet.
Wow.
So, but those are becoming automated now too. And I've seen in the war, and they're just like sending up like a bunch of them and just say, hey, go here. And they just go where they need to go.
I've read a couple articles in the war of what they were doing and how they were utilizing drones to mess with the Russian army. Like, impressive stuff.
Yeah, it's impressive stuff, and it's not like some like high tech dude.
No,
no,
no, it's not.
It's just some guy like, hey, could you order those? And
it
like,
wasn't even a military person
that
I seen being interviewed. It was like Dustin sitting in his bedroom. Controlling drones in a war. Like
what'd you do yesterday? I blew up 3 tanks.
I can't talk about it. What do you mean? What do you mean, Dustin? What do you mean? I can't talk about it.
Yeah, and they're winning. It's like, and not even. It's so wild.
It's amazing.
Serious, like Marvel cinematic.
Yeah. Superheroes
and supervillains.
But I know when I first seen that, like robot dog, was it Boston?
Yeah, it's
Police
Boston
Department.
The Boston Dynamics.
But who was was it New York City or was it Boston where I seen where there was a video out that TikTok it went strong and went viral where just the people's reaction watching this, and then like not long after this video came out they said we're not using these. Like people were so negative against this idea of a robot because it was freaking them out.
So this is a great swing into the next article. So there's a company called Corridor Digital, and they're a VFX company. They started off doing videos on YouTube, and now they're like really big. They even have a show coming on Netflix, and they did a parody video with the Boston Dynamic robot, the big one.
Okay.
And the parody video is they're beating the crap out of it, because in the videos they're kind of pushing it with hockey sticks and stuff like that. Have you ever seen the original video?
Okay.
But in their made-up video, the robot like fights back and stuff like that. And they try to make it look like testing footage and stuff like that. And they're really talented, very advanced CGI graphics, so it looked real.
Yeah.
So Boston Dynamics literally had to come out and make a statement saying that their video was fake and it was a gag, because people were getting freaked out.
Yeah.
So that might have been
thing was fighting.
It might have been like the same storyline. They had to come out and say, "Listen, this is not what it's for."
Yeah.
But those big robots they have are still in like testing phases. The little robot dog, which I think is called Bot.
Okay.
Or Dot. Maybe it's called Dot. That one you can buy. And you can buy like 20 of them. I think they had one commercial where they were dancing, or they were like pulling a sled or something like that.
Walking down Liberty Avenue and being like a dog walker. Like, you ever see a dog walker with multiple dogs?
Yeah.
Like a lot of dogs.
Oh my God.
Just you walking with 20 robot dogs. And like nothing is different. Like nothing is weird. Nothing is strange. You're just walking down the street, just watching Yinzer's brains melt. I would love to do that as just a promotional gag, like just the idea, like listen, what if we had somebody that was
well, like what for the furry convention? So when the furries come down, the guy's like dressed in furries, but he's walking 20 robot dogs.
Oh, that's just too much.
And that's for the
and they're
advertising.
And they're walking to Permanis. Like it's a whole thing. Like we can't like market and brand this enough.
Yeah, I'm
look at you right now.
Just in case. Hey, if anyone wants to sponsor that idea, we can make that happen.
If there's any funding that somebody wants to get, you know.
But this company, I've been watching this channel for a very long time. Like they're called Corridor Digital, and they do all kind of crazy VFX. They used to, well, they still do. They make their own like short shows and other shows, but they have a lot of behind the scenes and stuff just for fun. And they've been getting into a lot of artificial intelligence just to make content, to make anything. Like, for example, they pulled a gag, and the owner brought everyone into the room and showed a presentation of one of their producers giving this inspirational speech.
Okay.
He didn't do it. So they brought everyone in here, and they said, "Hey, everybody, Jim's got a thing to say." And Jim's like, "What are you talking about? I ain't got nothing to say."
Jim wasn't even in on the gag.
Jim was in the gag.
Oh,
and all of a sudden, he hears his voice, and it was all type. They had it all set up because they have all these technologies now. All you need is a little bit of a snippet of someone's voice and inflection.
Well, I know Fallon was doing that as a bit on his show for the longest time.
Oh, really?
Where he was taking, it was specifically with, who was the NBC reporter that got in trouble because he lied about.
Oh, I can't remember his name. Brian Williams.
Brian Williams.
Yeah, yeah.
And what he was doing, you can look him up, and it was like they would take his words and they would just make him do a Biggie song. And they took all, so there's obviously they've got the technology, they've got the software, whatever, where they're able to pull up every clip that man has ever put out there and type in each word lyric, and it was going to feed them.
Because they have so much footage of you saying basically every word in the
that
English language.
That would be in a song.
Yeah.
And so that to me is super crazy.
But what's scary with this story is you only need a few sentences to do this. So what they did now is they wanted to create a one button, like we joked before with George Jetson. You press a button, it makes content. That's all you need to do. Now they're not that far, but they with CGI and you ever hear of Fortnite? You know the video game Fortnite.
My son is, I got a 23-year-old son that is like
crazy
mesmerized.
My daughter loves it. But
really
that company is called Epic, and they have a software called the Unreal Engine. And it's basically a software that can make anything. Whatever you can imagine, it makes anything. So they combine that together with all this AI technology, and basically it just makes content. So they made a TikTok and Instagram influencer. And so it's just this girl, she kind of just pops in, and she's like, "Oh, today I did this, and today I did this," and it's not a real person. They're not doing it. They're not writing the script. They're not doing.
Dustin,
nah, it's so scary.
Listen, oh man. Again, we're taking something that content. So what is content? So if I'm going to look at it specifically through the lens of what I do for a living, and that's, you know, in comedy, technology has to only enhance the human element in what we do. That's the way I feel. There's nothing, you cannot replace going to a live comedy show that's happening. Like, you can watch it, we've watched them all. Like, it's already out there. Going and seeing live entertainment is something. So the idea of, but then I'm conflicted, because I'm like, but hey, man, this technology's there. If you have a way to utilize this to continue to enhance your brand or whatnot, like, I don't know. I'm conflicted and I get concerned, like, but not to the point where I don't think it should happen.
Yeah.
Like, that's how, like, my mind is open to any, like, go for it. But we need, like, when it comes to someone like, oh, I'm gonna build a whole, I don't know.
See, so you're right. My first question was like, well, how is this going to be beneficial besides just it's fun to say, like, I'm making content that I don't have to do anything. Like, that obviously right now that's why they're doing it, because they're content makers and it's interesting. But I was like, well, if you're making a video game and you need, you know, NPCs, non-player characters, whatever, it's non-playable characters, I could see, like, AI. Hey, I want to make a world that you come in and I want to generate all these people around you so you can experience this world, but I don't want to spend the time to code all these different people. So I was like, that makes sense there. But besides that, then I'll be like, well, what if you just, everything is so personalized. Like, instead of you going to a movie, you get a movie that's just made for you. No one else has seen it. No one else. It's just for you. And then I'm like, well, wait a second. Is it my movie? Can I sell that movie out? Is it just my content, or is it original music? It just starts to
sometimes
get
I think these think tanks
wild.
include a lot of just, like, mind-altering drugs. Like, like, how far can we allow our brains to say, what if? Like, I think, I mean, because you think back to just even, like, you're talking about, like, a generation of folks that probably were knee-deep in Sims. Like, that are, like, at what age would those folks be? Like, like, that was such, people that were into Sims were into Sims.
Yeah.
And that whole idea of creating a virtual world that you exist in as this thing, and you physically don't have to. And I respect the idea of social, you know, anxieties and things like that this allows for people to have outlets and communications and ability to meet people in ways that our generation and older don't fully grasp, but understand that I understand, like, this is a tool that can help society in some ways. But yeah, the idea of oh boy, that's one push of a button. So you're just like, I want something funny today.
I want something funny today, and then
but we kind of have that.
We kind of have it. It's called TikTok.
I pick what I want. I go on there.
It's close, but I said it just gets to the point where it's literally so original and just. It's just there. It's not like someone else has thought about it, made it, curated. It's gone through some algorithm and then given
the algorithm
to you.
is what blows my mind.
Yeah. Are you a TikToker? Do you dabble in the TikTok?
Not creatively.
Not creatively,
like,
but
no, I definitely consume a lot. I think I've definitely upped that. You know, when it comes to social media, I mean, I've pretty much, again, Facebook. You know,
it's trash land.
Facebook is just never, like, early on in the pandemic, I started recognizing some things that were messing with me that I just needed to eradicate.
Yeah, me too.
And the best thing I ever did was start with a timer on Facebook.
Yeah, I have that on my phone too.
I gave myself an hour a day. And it was interesting at first. It was sort of like going through, you know, a substance abuse steps program.
That's funny.
Where at first I'm like, whoa, I blew that hour out really quick. And I found myself, you know, snoozing and being like, oh, okay. And then I was like, wait a minute. I'm like, wait a minute, you're not. And then when I started really just getting away from it altogether, and the business side of it is what, you know, is challenging.
Exactly.
But I have one person on my staff that sort of keeps up on what we do on Facebook, and then I play around and I handle Instagram.
That's what I need.
You know what I mean? Because
you do the shitty website, social media. I'll do the nice website.
Yeah, right. And then, but then you know, my wife started using TikTok, and she'd be sending me videos, and you know, really good videos, a lot of thought pieces. Like, what do you want to get into today? What do you need? Do you need something to help with your mental health? You know, do you need something to help with a relationship? And you can find that on there, and finding whether it's different, you know, psychologists and counselors that are offering up, you know, and I love small bits of information. I don't want a book.
Yeah.
I want, here are the 5 points to a healthy, whatever. And it's like, oh, okay. Oh yeah, I should run more or get outside. Like, I don't know. I think that TikTok to me started getting, I think what ended up happening with TikTok in the world of comedy was we as comedians and people in the business of comedy, we seen what the YouTubers did, and we seen what happened with prior to TikTok was Vine. There were some amazing,
so great,
so many great moments of content, comedy content on Vine. But what we started seeing were these YouTube stars coming to clubs and selling $50 tickets with $250 meet and greets, and the clubs were looking at that going, whoa, we can make some money. And we started seeing, as comedians, we're like, wait a minute, like, these guys are coming out and they're dancing in a banana costume for 10 minutes.
That's I saw that picture. Yeah.
Right? Like, that was real. And
yeah.
and I think that then spurned when TikTok started happening. And I think that in the world of comedy, we wanted to not embrace it. We did not want it to be successful because we seen what happened before. And we wanted it to feel like I wanted it to feel more pure, and I wanted it to be about it. And then I started seeing, like, I didn't understand at first. I didn't understand the idea that I'm watching a suburban white mom do lip syncing John Mulaney's jokes. I didn't understand what was happening. I'm like, why is this content? Why is this person? They are lip syncing a stand-up. Why are John Mulaney just needs to post that? Like, are we going to post that? And we started seeing that, and I don't understand that content.
So I'll address
what's your feelings?
The TikTok part, I'll jump in there and I'll backtrack afterwards to YouTube. Yeah. But the TikTok part I found super interesting because, one, I think a lot happened with John Mulaney's a little different because he's such a superstar.
Yeah.
But there was other people either doing stand-up comedy or just kind of saying some funny things. Yeah. And I was like, that's really funny. And then, like, a pretty good-looking girl or someone that's not necessarily better looking, but better at presenting themselves. Like, you know how people are just good at writing jokes and some are good at being on stage. Yes. So it's like taking someone's good joke and presenting it better, and those were getting more views. Like, my favorite ones, there's this dude, and he kind of jokes about his young boy and stuff like that and how he talks back to him. They're funny, but not as funny as this girl who does with the blow-up head does it. She does his stuff better. All she's doing is lip-syncing. Yeah. It's 20 times better. But now it has come kind of roundabout that a lot of comedians have realized that they need to get back to video and stuff. They need to get cameras into the clubs. And now I'm starting to see.
Look at Taylor Tomlinson.
Yes.
Taylor Tomlinson is the greatest example of what she was already. So she was already established as a comedian to a certain level. She started very young. She was in the church circuit. That's when she started. I think she was 16 years old. She was doing the Christian church circuit as a stand-up. Yeah, that's how she started.
I didn't know that.
Pete Holmes is the same way.
Okay.
Pete Holmes came through the Christian circuit, and he documents that a little bit in Crashing. If you watch his which is an amazing series, and I wish I was very disappointed it got canceled. But Taylor started. I don't know if it was prior. It was right around the pandemic starting or whatever. But all of a sudden, she shot to like 1.1 million followers.
Yeah, it was real quick.
And what that allowed her to do and her team to do was really utilize such good branding and getting and on top of it, amazing talent. You know what I mean? Like to see and she was hitting a demographic that was very very interesting and it was great to see because my daughter falls in that demographic. So as a 26, 27-year-old, which Taylor is, she was speaking to my daughter. So this was the first stand-up comedian that my daughter seen that was relevant to her experience as a woman at that same age. And I was fortunate to go see Taylor back when she was here.
Yeah, I had tickets. I forgot why I couldn't go, but I had tickets. To that show.
And that was beautiful because you got to see, at that point, she was probably about 75% ready for her Netflix special, and then a couple months later, seeing the Netflix special and see what
so
came.
Cool.
That's the beauty. Like that's the beauty of the process.
Yes.
Like if you get a chance, like I know somebody that's going to see Mulaney early on in Columbus, and then he's ending his tour here in Pittsburgh. In that week, we have Mulaney, and 2 nights later, we have Chris Rock for 2 shows.
Oh my
all
God.
in 1 week. Pittsburgh as a comedy city is really garnered a lot of interesting traction. If we look at a lot of the different venues that you're seeing now, you're seeing, when I went and seen Taylor that night, you had Taylor Tomlinson, and then you had Eliza, who was the same night. Eliza sold out in Oakland, at the Carnegie in Oakland, and then you had Tammy Pescatelli that sold out, I think, every show at the Improv.
Tammy Pescatelli.
Yeah. So in one night in Pittsburgh, we had 3 powerful comedians selling out rooms. And yeah, so Taylor, back to what we're tie it back to tech. Watching Taylor and what she was able to do then opened up a lot of eyes from a comedian's perspective of what their content could be.
It was almost like she kind of almost changed stand-up comedy. And I see a lot of Andrew, I can't remember his last name off the top of my head, but like really focus on, like, it's a good thing to have someone like lip sync your content. I think before maybe some people were like, I can't believe they're stealing my stuff. And I think now it's almost the other way around. Like, you want that to happen because it gets more viral.
Yeah, I think that that'll come. I think that mindset comes as you find that it's like, oh, this person is monetizing off of my creation. And
yes.
I do have a problem with that. I do have a problem that if all you do on TikTok is repackage other people's spoken word, and then you are making a lot, I don't know what the payout looks
if
like.
you're making a lot of money, that's weird, but I don't think that happens too much.
Yeah,
where
I
you're
don't
just
think TikTok
constantly
has that, right?
Yeah, they have a creator fund.
But it's nothing like
it's nothing.
that.
You got to go figure out your ads. You got to go find a sponsor or something.
Which they
like
will.
Yeah.
Because they did on YouTube.
Yes.
It's inevitable. So I'm a little bit torn. Do I, but what you needed to see was, okay, Sam Morril is like, I don't need this person lip syncing I want to do it. You're exactly right. You got a camera in your pocket.
You got
to
to bring the camera. You got to have
make
that
an effort, and you got to be willing to go ahead and cut that up, edit that, and put that out. Or you have a team that does it, or you pay
I've
a
seen it,
manager.
and now I see it more often. And now that it's there, now the algorithm's going, oh, people like this.
Yes.
And then it will change again because TikTok is so crazy with the algorithm. Sometimes it will just be one meme for a month straight. I think I have to cuss a little. What's your favorite cuss word? Fuck, and everything like that. It was like,
I always catch on.
And
I'll find trends.
Fuck.
I'll find trends sometimes, and I'll be like, "What is this from? Why is this a thing? Why is everyone doing this?" And it's. But again, it's interesting because my wife won't have that same experience.
That's always weird too when you have two different TikTok. Like your feed is so different than my feed.
So different. Like,
that's the algorithm.
It is, and it's amazing. And TikTok, I think of all of the platforms, seems like you can manipulate that as a lot quicker than I can.
It's so crazy. I've been on there for so long. At first, I wasn't really crazy about it until it started having the reaction. I remember when I was a kid, I would flick through the tele. You can go around the horn real quick. You'd be like. And I got so good, parents were like, what are you doing? You can't even see what's on. I'm like, I can tell.
I've seen it all.
I could tell.
I know.
That wasn't good. You saw it for a half second.
Yeah.
And that's what I used to do.
Yeah.
TikTok, I feel, is like that. The difference is I stop on everyone because everyone's good.
Yeah.
I've been on there enough. The algorithm's got me. And it's not just always the same thing. Yeah. It's not like you like comedy, so we're just going to give you comedy.
No.
It understands I need a little of this.
I watched live professional wiffle ball for 2 hours the other night.
I've watched live restaurants make pizza and hand it to customers. I've watched live cashiers just giving out soda. It's just so I don't know what I'm doing.
I think it is the voyeurism. I think there's a level of voyeurism that definitely we need to address with you. I don't know. I think that's interesting. But then again, you're probably like, wiffle ball, bro?
Yeah.
Like, I was like, yeah, wiffle ball. And then, the best thing that I've seen on TikTok that I tell everyone about. There's this guy, I don't know where he came from, like where he's based out of. I don't know why I think automatically he's in Indiana. I don't know why. But he sets up a treadmill and he takes pool balls and he puts them on the treadmill, and the treadmill's running. And then in front of the treadmill, he has monitors. He has cameras on these balls. He has like the order that they're in. And then he's talking to you. and he has a stack of red Solo cups. And then as he's talking to you, then he starts announcing the game, and he starts dropping them on the treadmill and dropping them. And then he now is going like a horse race. He's just like, oh, yellow number 1 is on the back of the pack, and it's making its way up to the front. Oh, 7, purple 9. And I'm in the chat screaming and rooting for the ball I want. And I'm watching this, and I'm like, what the hell am I doing? And then I start going, oh, he can make this a betting thing. Like, I would bet money. I would put $1 in, and he gets 25 cents of a dollar, and then we get paid out through Cash App, or we get Venmo'd if
Bitcoin,
we win,
crypto,
whatever you want to pay me
yeah.
in, man. And I'm sitting there looking at it, and that's where my business brain's like, I think we can monetize.
We can monetize this. He probably already has. I've seen that multiple times too. Where I can't tell sometimes if it's fake live or real live. Sometimes they do that bullshit.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, I've seen different. Like, he's had like all yellow cars. I think he had all like Lego cars once. He had all.
The
like,
guy I watch is strictly pool balls. Like,
strictly pool balls.
He's got his. That's his thing. He doesn't deviate.
But I think
he started switching up and started doing different size Solo cups. So he's definitely upgraded his operation. But there's nothing like when he drops one and they all go flying off, and everyone on the chat's like, no! And I'm screaming. I'm on my deck. I'm just sitting there at midnight, just watching this brainless shit because I want to just melt away for an hour,
It's so funny. You're so enthralled. It's like
I'm invested.
You're so invested.
And then you start asking, can I build that?
Yeah.
Do anyone have a treadmill? What can I do? I think this is great.
Is this my new career? Is this what I want to do for my life? 30 treadmills.
There's a whole professional league we're running out of a back room bar in Blonde.
You're on the phone, Mr. Beast from YouTube's like, listen, Mr. Beast, I got an idea.
We have a back room in Blonde.
We have a back room in Blonde with 100 treadmills.
What are you guys doing? We're just working out.
Yeah, we're just working out. You want to get some betting going on here?
Too much. You've got me into a pit.
Oh, I know. We can go in for everything, and we're getting close to the end here. But I want to talk a little bit more about Fortnite, because we were talking a little bit about VR and advertising space, sort of kind of thing. And so, do you have any VRs? You haven't played?
No.
You haven't played in VR yet?
I played VR, yeah.
Yeah. Like playing the Oculus, maybe, because that's like been the one.
It was. Yeah, we did a New Year's Eve 2019 going to 2020.
Oh, okay.
We threw an epic party at our theater where I transformed the upstairs theater into a video game center. So we brought in all of our standalone, our Miss Pac-Man, our Centipedes, our Kung Fu, Street Fighter, and lined them up across the back. Then I had a section that was set up as a living room, and you played NES. So you played Tecmo Bowl, you played all the old 8-bit, and then you had on the big screen, then we had the games that you play on your phone.
That's awesome. They just shut up a place called Barcadia in Market Square. That sounds like what that would be.
Yeah, and then we had a section for VR, and someone had their VR unit was helping us. So I was playing, I believe it was an Oculus. It was the game where it's almost like a Guitar Hero concept, and you've got to sort of hit the patterns.
Yeah, what is a Blade?
Something like that. Yeah.
I was
fun. Absolutely horrible.
It's so much. Oh,
I was so bad at it, and I'm an old school gamer. Like, I came up, like, my first system was, I had a Radio Shack plug and play, like where it had like a knockoff version of Pong.
Yeah, I had an Atari with Pong.
Yeah,
that's my first
then I got that Atari. Then I got the Atari skipped Intellivision. I had a couple people I knew that had Intellivision as an operating system, and their graphics were like really good. And then
32-bit or whatever it was, probably lower than that.
and then jumped in. Then it was 1986, Christmas of '86, going in '87. I got my 8-bit, was it the 8-bit?
It was probably 8-bit, Nintendo, yeah.
Super Mario Brothers, that's when everything was popping off. And then it was from there, it just rolled to Sega, went to Sega, and then all that.
Now, I did all that. I was all crazy video games, and then I started the VR, and it was fun, and I'm getting into it. And they have a game sort of like Fortnite. It's called Population 1.
Okay.
And it was, it was buggy at first, and then when Fortnite just updated a bunch of stuff like they did last week or 2 weeks ago, Population 1 updated this, and they made this one corner of the map basically like a city. So even though the map's the same size, well, when you build a city in the corner of the map, the map is like quadruple now.
Okay.
And I am obsessed. Like, it is full on load the gun,
walking the streets
cock
of
the
the
gun,
city.
walk the streets, peering around the corners. You're talking. Hey, there's a guy. It's so much fun.
I'd love to try. See, I think that first game that I tried was not I mean, because it was this whole like hand-eye like music
Yeah.
and the whole thing, and I was like, my gameplay has never been that type of stuff.
Yeah.
My gameplay is like I want to be like I
Yeah.
want to do
And it is a
adventure.
little tough. You got like you're squinting a little bit. The graphics, obviously, they're trying to wrap 4K graphics all around, so it's
Yeah.
not. But the gameplay is amazing. But it reminds me to how they're doing in Fortnite with advertising and bringing in like music and like concerts at Fortnite, because like things happen in places. And like my daughter was talking about this thing. There was an advertising in Fortnite for, I forget what it was. I don't think it was Travis Scott, but it was some kind of thing. And she was like, "Oh, that's really interesting. I remember when I got a kill there." I was like, "That's such a weird concept." That like now you're like, "Oh, I remember being there." You're not really there. You're just Oh, Siri's talking to me now, interrupting me during my smart.
technology.
Yeah, I know. But I was like, "Oh, that's such a weird." So like in there right now, you can go buy digital space, just like you can buy land in the real world.
Yeah.
There are places where you can go buy land in a digital space, and at first that's kind of stupid. Why? Because it's right infinity. But if that land's popular, in like say the Fortnite gaming map, it would be very beneficial to own, say, that piece of Fortnite, and then you could put up advertising, because people would be like, "Oh, when I was walking past," and I was like, "That's so
But these
crazy."
these worlds exist already, right? Like
Right.
there are monetized virtual worlds, correct? Like I know
Yeah.
I've read, I don't live in that space the way you do, with tech, but I know I have read articles over the years of
Yeah, I mean, there's
this
different
and-
ways
and-
to buy in, and then like a lot of these software and games, it's free to play. Like
Yeah.
like Fortnite's free to play,
Yeah.
Populous One's free to play, but they get you with the skins
yeah,
and stuff like that,
yeah.
and then like their experiences.
It's
and
amazing to
guns.
watch. I mean, as a former gamer, and I knew when I introduced my son to gaming, I knew when Call of Duty happened, I introduced him first to what was the first one, which was Medal of Honor.
Yeah,
Where it
yes,
was the
on
World War
PlayStation.
II.
Mm-hmm. That was good.
And I was never much of a shooter player. I was more of a sport. I always liked sports. But that was the first shooter that I was like, oh, I like this a lot, because it almost like the beginning feels like you're actually in Saving Private Ryan. Like the beginning, you're in the U-boats and boom, heads are being shot off, and then you've got to find Hitler. Like it mixed history and actual historical moments. I'm like, holy hell! And I remember sitting there watching my son playing. I don't know what part we were on. Which one had the board, had the map Rust?
I know. That might be a Call of Duty. I know.
It was Call of Duty. It was Rust.
It's
It was
either
a small map.
Warfare. It's either the Modern Warfare one or the one before.
No, it was
Black
before.
Ops.
It was Black Ops was garbage. Didn't like
It
Black
was.
Ops at all. Boy, he's gonna kill me for not knowing.
It's before Modern Warfare.
But it's when I looked at him and I'm watching him play, and his eyes and his hands, and I'd never seen anyone operate that way, and it was just. And then now, as I watch stuff on Fortnite and I see professional gamers, which I love. I love the idea that we have professional gamers, that there are gamers out there that are legitimizing what they have done, because I understand it. It is not, if you've every old head out there that's saying, oh, this is dumb, no, anyone could do that. That doesn't make them professional. Hand them a controller. What they're doing, you can't do. Don't pretend you can.
Yeah.
Because when I watch my son and his brain and his eyes and his hands process information at a rate that I cannot imagine processing, that you cannot replicate.
It is
and
scary.
I knew that I had, and I really wish, and I know everyone dotes on their children and things, but I've had like a couple of my friends, my son's friends, say to me like, oh, he should just do it. He should
Just do it.
He should be.
There is a
professional.
Pittsburgh team.
Yeah, there is.
Yeah.
and they're sponsored and they're backed by the Steelers.
Yeah.
So
That's cool.
So the
I
idea of
didn't know that.
esports, e-gaming, watching Fortnite, like watching that championship happen, where it was a couple years ago, obviously before the pandemic. I mean, there's a great documentary that's on Netflix about these competing groups that, like, one of the former basketball players in the NBA owns a team, and he funds them, and they travel the world in private jets, and they come in for competitions, and he rents out suites for them, and they come in with all their gear, and they're like, the kids like, look at the beach. They were in Miami. He was looking at the beach. closes the
Well, it's
drapes.
cool. All these
and
pro
they-
athletes love gaming
Yes.
too. They're all like from that
yeah,
genre.
but these guys aren't
Yeah.
playing esports. They're playing Fortnite. They're playing all of these other games that are sort of in that same world. And man, the idea of you then being like, I'm gonna go on Fortnite and go to a concert in that world.
Yeah.
But you're not fighting.
You're not fighting.
You fought there earlier.
Yeah, you might
There's
fight
no
there
matches.
earlier.
We're gonna take.
Well, I think what
other
actually
matches are going on
happens
in
is
different parts of the world.
You're fighting, and all of a sudden it happens. Like the thing happens, and you have to whatever happens. You have to stop fighting, or guns don't work anymore. It's something like that. I think I did one once. Wow. The Travis Scott one I saw.
And he's doing the concert is exclusive content that he's doing recorded, presented to that world as a concert.
Yeah,
and
I think
you are seeing it.
you can play. It's like for like a week. They have done things
all for
though.
it.
They have done things that only happen once though too. Like if you're not playing the game at that time, you don't experience it.
So you're like playing. All of a sudden, Travis Scott shows up and he's doing the show?
Well, that's what's crazy about Fortnite is like if you forget, if you show up next day, you're like, where'd Tilted Towers go? There's an entire town that's gone. Like, because storyline of something like Meteor came, blew it up.
Wow.
So that's what's cool. But the Travis Scott thing was basically he was like a walking hologram.
Yeah.
And you could bounce through, and he was just singing his and rapping his song, and you're in the game. And so later you're like, yeah, when I was down by Tilted Towers, Travis Scott came, he was jumping around. It's pretty sweet. It's like
that's amazing.
Weird way.
That's amazing
to think.
I love it.
But yeah, and I agree with that. With my daughter, when I see her on the iPad and the way she,
never seen anything.
I don't.
And they
like,
talk about
my
that.
fingers would
stat.
fall off.
They've made a stat.
It's a stat.
It is a stat. I know when I watched the
typing.
when I watched the Fortnite World Championship, they were talking about the amount of moves and builds that the player was making.
Okay.
And then they were equating it to like it had a number to it. So each person, as they are ranked, have a number, a statistic to it, besides kills and all that other good stuff. But their ability to build and the rapid movement in which they're doing it, it's pretty amazing to watch.
And like I said, so in the future, like I said, when virtual reality is in reality, it starts to be like, what are you in? These people with, or by then they'll be plugged in, and maybe that doesn't even matter anymore, We're just straight up. All right, well, I think we're getting to the end here. Is there anything else you need to plug? Any shows for Arcade coming up?
Always. I mean, we're there every weekend. Coming back from the pandemic, one of the things that we've done is sort of streamlined how many shows that we're doing, because on top of it, we're teaching, we have 6 classes going on right now, Saturday through Thursday through Wednesdays. So yeah, just go to arcadecomedytheater.com. You'll see everything that we offer there. With all the different shows, some of the old standards are still with us. Knights of the Arcade, Dungeons and Dragons live, and you want to talk about our move to virtual, like to when it all happened, when we had to shut down. A week later, Knights of the Arcade were doing. They just immediately reached out, and they've been friends and been with us. I mean, one of our founders and my programming director is a cast member, and they were just like, we think this could work on Twitch. And the next week, they did their first.
That's so cool. There's a couple of shows, and like I said, Corridor Digital, the channel I was talking about before, they actually have a main show where what they do with the show is like they shoot the storyline afterwards. Obviously, they play the game, and then there's a storyline. Then they go and they shoot green screen, and so when you watch the show, then it's all together. So the narration, and then all of a sudden they're in the board. They put them in the board. It's so super cool. But Jason, thank you so much for coming on the Smart House. Guys, you can check us out at www.thepits.company. That is the network. You can find other informational stuff, other comedy stuff, and all this production and everything is by the gateway.media. So if anyone needs any video production, podcasts, or anything of those media types, you can check us out, leave us a message. Once again, Jason, thank you so much for having us.
It's great to see you,
and thanks for watching, guys. And we're out. Dude, that was awesome.
Good. Yeah,
that was a lot of fun.
That was fun.